In the untamed wilderness of America, a man was attacked by a giant grizzly bear, abandoned by his own companions, left to die with broken bones and horrific wounds. Yet what happened next became one of the most astonishing survival stories in American history. This is the true story of Hugh Glass, a man who refused to die. In the summer of 1823, the American frontier was a land of endless forests, dangerous rivers, and unknown territories. It was a place where maps were incomplete, where Native American tribes controlled vast regions, and where survival depended on courage, skill, and sometimes pure luck. Among the rugged mountain men exploring this harsh wilderness was Hugh Glass, a trapper whose name would eventually become legendary throughout the United States. Little was known about Glass's early life. Historians believe he was born around 1783 in Pennsylvania. Like many adventurous men of his era, he was drawn westward by the promise of opportunity. The American frontier represented freedom, wealth, and adventure, but it also carried immense danger. By 1823, Glass had joined an expedition led by General William Henry Ashley. The group consisted of approximately 100 trappers and hunters known as Ashley's 100. Their mission was to travel deep into the Missouri River region and collect valuable beaver pelts, which were highly sought after in the fashion markets of Europe and America. The journey was brutal from the very beginning. The men traveled through remote landscapes where every day presented new threats. Harsh weather, disease, starvation, wild animals, and hostile encounters could end a life in an instant. Yet Hugh Glass thrived in these conditions. He possessed extraordinary wilderness skills and remarkable endurance. Fellow trappers respected his knowledge and determination. Those qualities would soon be tested in ways no one could have imagined. In late August 1823, Glass was scouting ahead of the main group near the Grand River in present-day South Dakota. The morning appeared calm. The prairies stretched endlessly toward the horizon. Tall grasses swayed gently in the wind. Birds circled overhead. Without warning, disaster struck. Glass accidentally wandered too close to a grizzly bear and her cubs. The mother bear immediately perceived him as a threat. Within seconds, she charged. Grizzly bears are among the most powerful predators in North America. Adult females can weigh hundreds of pounds and possess incredible strength. Glass had little time to react. The bear slammed into him with overwhelming force. Witnesses later described a horrifying scene. The animal knocked him to the ground and began tearing into his flesh. Massive claws ripped through his back and shoulders. Sharp teeth crushed parts of his body. Glass fought desperately using a knife, but he was hopelessly outmatched. Nearby trappers heard the commotion and rushed toward the attack. They fired their weapons repeatedly. Eventually, the bear collapsed and died. But Hugh Glass was barely alive. The men who examined him were shocked by the severity of his injuries. His scalp was partially torn away. His back was shredded. Deep wounds covered his body. Several bones appeared broken. Blood soaked the ground beneath him. Many believed death was only a matter of time. Moving Glass became an enormous challenge. The expedition was traveling through hostile territory, and carrying an injured man significantly slowed their progress. Ashley offered payment to any volunteers willing to remain behind and care for Glass until he died. 2 men accepted. Their names were John Fitzgerald and a young trapper named Jim Bridger. 4 days they stayed with Glass. However, the situation grew increasingly dangerous. Reports suggested nearby Native American warriors might be approaching. Fear began to dominate their thinking. Eventually, Fitzgerald convinced Bridger that Glass would never recover. The injured trapper appeared unconscious and near death. Rather than risk their own lives, the 2 men made a shocking decision. They abandoned him. To make matters worse, they took his rifle, knife, and equipment before leaving. Glass was left alone on the vast American frontier. No shelter. No weapons. No food. No help. Most people would have died within hours. Hugh Glass did not. When he finally regained consciousness, he discovered a nightmare. The pain was unbearable. His body was devastated. Every movement felt like torture. Yet somewhere deep inside, a powerful determination emerged. He refused to accept death. Glass understood his situation with brutal clarity. No rescue was coming. If he wished to survive, he would have to save himself. At first, he could barely move. Crawling became his only option. Inch by inch, he dragged his broken body across the wilderness. The effort was excruciating. Every yard required immense willpower. His wounds became infected. Fever threatened to overwhelm him. Yet he continued. One of the greatest challenges involved preventing infection from killing him. According to historical accounts, Glass allowed maggots to consume dead tissue within his wounds. Although horrifying, the practice may actually have helped remove decaying flesh and reduce infection. Nature itself became an unlikely ally. Glass survived by eating berries, roots, and anything edible he could find. Sometimes he scavenged abandoned animal remains left by predators. Every meal was a victory. Every sunrise represented another chance to live. His destination was Fort Kiowa, a trading post located hundreds of miles away. The distance seemed impossible. Yet Glass focused on one goal at a time. One crawl. One day. 1 mile. Weeks passed. His body slowly adapted. Strength gradually returned. He moved from crawling to staggering short distances. The journey became one of the most extraordinary survival feats in American history. Glass crossed rivers. He endured storms. He faced hunger, exhaustion, and loneliness beyond imagination. Many nights he slept under the open sky. The wilderness around him remained filled with danger. Wolves howled in the darkness. Predators roamed nearby. Any serious setback could prove fatal. Still, he pressed forward. At one point, Glass reportedly encountered friendly Native Americans who provided assistance. They offered food and basic care, helping him continue his remarkable journey. Without their kindness, survival might have been impossible. Eventually, after approximately 6 weeks and more than 200 miles of travel, Hugh Glass reached Fort Kiowa. The people who saw him could scarcely believe their eyes. A man who should have died weeks earlier stood before them alive. His appearance was shocking. Scarred. Emaciated. Exhausted. Yet alive. News of his survival spread rapidly across the frontier. Mountain men, traders, soldiers, and settlers shared the story. Many considered it miraculous. Glass spent months recovering. But another motivation sustained him throughout the healing process. Revenge. He had not forgotten Fitzgerald and Bridger. The men had abandoned him. They had stolen his possessions. They had left him to die. Glass became determined to find them. When he regained sufficient strength, he began searching. The pursuit carried him across vast distances. Eventually, he located Jim Bridger. By then, Bridger was still very young. Historical accounts suggest Glass ultimately forgave him, recognizing that Fitzgerald had exerted significant influence over the teenager. The encounter ended peacefully. Finding John Fitzgerald proved more complicated. Eventually, Glass tracked him to a military post. There he discovered an unexpected obstacle. Fitzgerald had enlisted in the United States Army. Killing a soldier could result in severe punishment. Glass faced a difficult choice. He had dreamed of revenge for months. Yet acting on that desire could destroy his future. In a remarkable display of restraint, he chose another path. Historical reports indicate he recovered some of his belongings and allowed Fitzgerald to live. The decision surprised many. Perhaps Glass understood something important. Survival had already become the greatest victory. The years that followed saw Hugh Glass continue working as a trapper and frontiersman. His reputation grew throughout the American West. Stories of his survival became legendary. Some details evolved over time, as frontier tales often did. Nevertheless, the core events remained supported by historical records. Glass's ordeal captured the imagination of generations. Writers chronicled his adventures. Historians studied his journey. His name became synonymous with endurance and determination. Nearly 2 centuries later, interest in his story experienced a major revival. In 2015, the film The Revenant introduced millions of viewers to a dramatized version of Hugh Glass's survival ordeal. The movie starred Leonardo DiCaprio and brought international attention to one of America's most remarkable frontier legends. While Hollywood altered certain details for dramatic effect, the essential truth remained astonishing. A man attacked by a grizzly bear, abandoned by companions, left for dead, survived against impossible odds. The real significance of Hugh Glass's story extends beyond survival. It reveals the harsh realities of early American expansion. The frontier was not a romantic adventure. It was a brutal environment where death was common and comfort almost non-existent. Men and women who ventured west faced extraordinary risks. Their experiences helped shape the history of the United States. Glass embodied many frontier qualities Americans came to admire: resilience, courage, self-reliance, and determination. His story reminds us that history is filled with individuals whose achievements seem almost unbelievable. Not kings, not presidents, not generals, just ordinary people confronted by extraordinary circumstances. In an age before modern medicine, helicopters, emergency communications, and organized rescue operations, Hugh Glass survived through sheer willpower and relentless perseverance. His scars remained with him for the rest of his life. They served as permanent reminders of one of history's greatest survival stories. Today, visitors can travel through parts of the landscape where Glass fought for his life. The rivers still flow. The plains still stretch toward distant horizons. The wilderness remains vast. Standing there, it becomes easier to appreciate the scale of his accomplishment. Every mile he traveled represented pain. Every day represented uncertainty. Every step represented defiance against death itself. The legend of Hugh Glass endures because it speaks to something universal. Human beings possess remarkable reserves of strength. When confronted with impossible circumstances, some individuals discover capabilities they never knew existed. Glass was one such person. His body was broken. His situation appeared hopeless. Logic suggested he should die. Yet he continued moving forward, one painful step at a time, one impossible day after another. And in doing so, he transformed himself from a forgotten trapper into one of the most enduring figures in American frontier history. The true story of Hugh Glass remains a testament to the extraordinary power of human determination, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, survival sometimes belongs to those who simply refuse to surrender.